this is Daniel Mart back again. I'm an actor and filmmaker based out of South Florida, and for this video, as you read down below, I'm going to be telling you guys my top 25 favorite horror films of the past 25 years of the century, of the 21st century. As you saw throughout my channel earlier this year, about 3, maybe 4 months ago, I was reacting to a bunch of these list videos, which were basically top amount of movies, usually top 100 movies of the past 25 years of the 21st century. Since we're basically we're at the end of the first quarter of the century, the first 25 years, a lot of these lists started to come out, and I believe it was the Hollywood Reporter that they did a horror specific list of the top 25 movies of the past 25 years, essentially. And there's been a lot of interesting picks, not even in that list, but just throughout all the different lists I've seen, even some other ones that I didn't react to, because after a while, I can't just be reacting to lists like these for like 3 months straight, you know what I mean? So I just decided to react to some of the more important lists, so to speak. But yeah, I wanted to do this. We're in October, spooky season, why not? And end this season with this list, with this type of video. So for this list, it's not necessarily the best movies, it's more so my favorite movies, because I think there's a distinction there. I think for me, one of the biggest examples of a movie that I think is really great, but if I'm being honest, it's not necessarily my favorite. It's something like Let the Right One In. I was actually very much shocked how often I saw that movie in a lot of these lists, and it's not because I thought it's a bad movie, either the original or the remake. It's not because I thought they were bad movies, or because I didn't like them or anything like that. It's just that for me personally, it's just not one I would personally consider putting on a list, just because it's not one I really think about. It's not really one that's in the forefront of my thoughts. And again, I like the movie, don't get me wrong, I like the movie, but I also wouldn't consider it one of my favorite horror movies either. For me, it's a pretty good, like above average, or really good horror movie, but there's other horror movies I just prefer a lot more than Let the Right One In. So I'm gonna use that as an example where these are my favorite, not necessarily the best, but my favorite. And trust me, there's gonna be a few wild picks here in terms of my favorites that I'm pretty sure not many people are gonna be like, really? That's not one of the best. I'm like, yeah, no, it's not one of the best, but it's my personal favorite. So let's go on with the top 25. Starting now, we have starting off with some freaky stuff with Mad God. So for me, one of my favorite genres outside of horror is animation. And I feel like I needed to put an animated pick here somewhere on the list. And honestly, the only reason this is at number 25, why it's basically the last one, it's because it's the one I've had the least time, so to speak, to really get accustomed to it. I'll be honest, I've only seen it the one time back in 2021 or maybe early 2022, and then I've seen clips of it every here and there, but it's such a trippy movie that I'll be honest, I kind of do need to go back, sit down, and rewatch it. But that's the thing, it is such a trippy movie. Phil Tippett, the filmmaker, the director of this movie, he spent like, what, 40 years, I think, trying to make this movie. On and off, working on different projects. I think he was working, like, on Jurassic Park at one point while trying to make this movie. Like, that's how long this movie has been in production, so to speak, because it's a stop-motion movie. There are some live-action elements to it, but it's mostly a stop-motion movie. And yes, I do feel like I needed to put an animated pick here at some point. And I just felt like 25 just seemed like the appropriate place to put for a movie that I haven't really spent that much time with, and one that I'm also just still trying to understand in a lot of senses, because that's the thing, like, this is one of those things where it's just all visuals, and yes, there's a story, but it's one of those things that it's not that linear. It's like, it's a weird movie. You kind of have to watch it to know what I'm talking about. If you know what I'm talking about, if you've seen this movie, you know exactly what I'm talking about. It's just such a trippy movie, and it's so great. And again, I needed to have an animated pick. I could have gone with something like Monster House, which I do like a lot. Maybe one of those, if the Scooby-Doo animated movies started just like in the 2000s and not like in the 90s, I would have put something like Zombie Island, to be honest with you. I think Cyber Chase may have come out in the 2000s, but I think it's already too late for that. I'll be honest, I'm not the biggest fan of Coraline, so that's why it's not here. So I do feel like I needed to put an animated horror movie on the list, and Mad God just kind of rose above. Honestly, and I said this in my video of top 30 horror movies that should be on the Criterion channel, this is one, or Criterion Collection, but I said this is one that should definitely be on the Criterion Collection. Like, to have them sit down with Phil Tippett, have them do a whole behind the scenes, a documentary by like how he did this movie, and just kind of go ape with it. This would be great for the Criterion Collection, honestly. And yeah, it's such a trippy movie. Definitely go check it out. It is one that I do need to watch again. I'm not gonna lie, I do need to rewatch it. I probably should have done it this year before making this video, but you know, too little too late. At number 24, we have Frailty. So now we're going all the way back to the beginning of the decade. Mad God was from 2021. Frailty is from 2001. right there 20 years earlier, essentially. And Frailty, that is such... I think trippy is not necessarily the right word to use, but it is such a thought-provoking movie, I guess is the best way to word it. It is kind of trippy, not gonna lie, but it's really more thought-provoking. I mean, again, if you know the story of Frailty, these two kids who are raised by their father, normal guy, your average Joe, nothing normal, and from one day to another, he basically says, I have this message from God. So yes, it is also a religious horror movie, which you don't get too many of them to begin with, and most religious horror movies kind of are either really good or really blasphemous, essentially what it comes down to. I mean, there's an argument to be said that any religious horror movie is blasphemous right off the bat, so that's a discussion for another day. But yeah, you have this guy, average father, average Joe, nothing special about him. He's your average guy living in the country. I'm pretty sure it's like countryside, and because they're like in Alabama, I think. So, you know, live or Missouri, Kentucky, somewhere around there. Country, you know, your country redneck guy, loving father, whatever. And from one day to another, he just flips a switch, says he has a message from God to kill all the demons, kill all the sinners that God has put on his plate, so to speak. And his two sons, they react in radically different ways. One of them falls in line, the other one's like, no, this is wrong. Also, I'm pretty sure this is one of Matthew McConaughey's, not first roles, because he's been around since like the 80s with stuff like Dazed and Confused, 80s or 90s, whenever that movie came out. But I think this is one of the first roles he did when he was like really trying to become a serious actor during the midst of his whole rom-com phase, when he was doing all those rom-com movies. I think that this was like right there at the midst of it. So such an interesting role to take during that time when he's best known for these romantic comedies. I'll be honest, I don't know any of the names of the romantic comedies he did during that time. Aside from, I think, How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days. It's such an interesting movie. I saw it for the first time last year. Yeah, last year. I saw it for the first time last year. And it's one that really got me, like, thought-provoking, I guess, so to speak. Like, it just, like, yeah, provoked my thoughts. That's really the only way I could think of it. It's such an interesting concept, like, just seeing how these two kids react. The insanity of it all, so to speak. Because, I mean, spoilers, but at the very end, it's turned out that his father was right, that this truly was a message from God. I think that's the one thing I would kind of criticize about the film a little bit. I do kind of wish it would have been a bit more ambiguous at the end, but at the same time, I do like how the review was done regardless. And it's such a great movie. It's one, I feel like it's almost underrated and overlooked. I almost put it there with like something like The Mothman Prophecies, which is another film I could have talked about. Like, it's almost like in that early to mid 2000, maybe even late 90s, like late 90s to early 2000, like psychological horror movies that not many people talk about for one reason or another. I think this is one that definitely a lot more people should talk about. I think I put it there with like Mothman Prophecies and what is it, the Sound of Silence, something like that. I'm blanking out on the name of it right now, but you know, there's a title. I kind of put it there with those movies, and it's just great. And like I would say those three movies almost like, even though they don't really necessarily share similar themes per se, I almost put them as a trilogy, and like in my own mind. But I think Frailty kind of stands above the rest. I mean, yeah, I'm kind of low key forgetting what are the titles of the movies right now. It kind of makes sense. But yeah, like these kind of like psychological horror movies where you're just really thought provoking, where you really don't know if the story that's going on is true until the very end. I think for me, it's just great, and I really think you should watch it if you haven't already. And again, it's a religious horror movie, and again, there's not that many religious horror movies, and they usually either they're really good or they're really blasphemous, and that's, you know, and me as a Christian, like, I don't really have a problem with watching horror movies. That's honestly a discussion that can be done for another day, maybe next year, we'll see. There are certain horror movies, religious horror movies, that are, let's just say, take the piss out of religion. In a sense, I would say something like Immaculate. I think that's a Sidney Sweeney nun movie, like Immaculate. That kind of took a piss out of religion, if you ask me. But something like this, I would say, generally respects religion. I do think there are some religious things that they could have tightened up, but then again, you're talking about religious horror movie. I mean, granted, it's nothing like The Exorcist, which that's a whole conversation in of itself, which I actually would love to defend The Exorcist one day. I was going to make that video for this year, but I just ran out of time, if I'm being honest with you, so maybe for next year. But yeah, that's a conversation for a different day. Now, on to number 23. And number 23, sticking with the early 2000s, on 2000 itself, we have American Psycho. So for me, it's not that I don't like American Psycho. I really do like it. It's in my top 25 here. But the reason I have it so low is because I feel like I like the imagery more of American Psycho than the movie itself. I feel like American Psycho, in a sense, it's so prevalent in pop culture, almost like Psycho, for example, almost like Halloween. Like, it's so prevalent in pop culture that I sometimes forget, oh, like, this is actually a movie. Like, this is actually a movie with the plot, this, that, and that, with Christian Bale. And it's kind of a trip as well. Like, it's also kind of almost similar to Frailty. You also don't know if the events are happening in real time, in real life, or not. I like the imagery of American Psycho. With hips to be squared, with the raincoat, the bloody raincoat. I mean, Ice Nine Kills, hips to be squared. That's a song based on American Psycho. By the way, Ice Nine Kills, incredible band. They do a lot of horror themed songs. Fantastic. I love their song for The Crow and American Werewolf. Those are some great songs. Stabbing in the Dark for Halloween. Again, great songs. But they did Hips to be Squared, which is for American Psycho. That's such a fun song. But like, that's the thing with this. I feel like I like the imagery a lot of American Psycho a lot more than the actual movie. But that being said, if I like the imagery, I kind of have to like a movie. You know what I mean? And it's not a bad movie. I'm not gonna lie, it's not a bad movie. I've heard a lot of people discuss this, and I think it would have been an inspired choice if it would have been nominated back in the day, in I guess 2001. If it would have been nominated for best screenplay, adapted screenplay at the Oscars, I think that would have been an inspired choice. I think the one thing with this movie too, a lot of people kind of get, I guess, confused on it. A lot of people call this movie sexist and misogynistic, not realizing that the person who directed this is a woman. I'm pretty sure the author, because it's based on a book, I'm pretty sure the author is also a woman too. Just kind of just funny how, hey, this is sexist, this is misogynistic. Like, it's written by a woman from almost a woman's point of view. So that's kind of funny. I guess it also kind of just speaks to that wider trend of why women love serial killers. I actually just watched a video on it literally yesterday, last night, about the whole psychology between mostly women, but yes, also men, and like why we relate, I guess would be the best word, to serial killers, or why we want to relate or want to give sympathy to these violent killers, whether it be in real life or in media. American Psycho being another example of it. I think it's great. I will say the first time I ever watched American Psycho was actually the censored version on TV, which was like 10 years ago. So like there's a lot of scenes where I was watching it and I'm like, why do people like this movie? Like, yeah, it's not a bad movie, but I think it's just kind of average. And it wasn't until I bought the Blu-ray of American Psycho like a year and a half ago, and I saw it in full, how it was intended, not censored. I'm like, oh, that's why. That's why. It's funny, because even with the censored version, I'm like, I didn't think it was a bad movie, but I was still like just a little bit lost in some of the details, which I guess happens when everything's censored. So I do have that funny little anecdote in regards to American Psycho. Next up, we have at number, 22? Yeah, 22. At number 22, we have... Alright, at number 22, we have The Host. So yeah, this is actually going to be one of two Bong Joon-ho movies that are going to be here on the list. The other one, you can maybe take a gander at which one it is. If you know, we know. I think this is actually a really good movie. I almost think like the other movie we're going to discuss about in the future kind of overshadows The Host. Okay, I'm going to be honest, it's Parasite. Let's be honest, it's Parasite. And we'll talk about Parasite once we get to there. Just to touch upon Parasite a little bit in regards to The Host, I almost feel like Parasite was such a humongous hit for Bong Joon-ho for obvious reasons. I mean, it won Best Picture at the Oscars. The first feature in a different language that's not English to win that award, outside of maybe The Artist and Wings, but those were silent films, so take that for what you will. I feel like because Parasite was such a huge hit for Bong Joon-ho, it almost overshadowed all his other movies. Not just The Host, but it overshadowed stuff like Memories of a Murder, Okja, all these other movies that he's done. Even Mickey 17 that just came out this year. I feel like Parasite is just like such a huge looming shadow over all these films that it not only does it overshadow them, but almost kind of not lessens them, but I feel like not many people like respect them anymore as much, or like look at them as much because of what Parasite did. But for The Host, I think it's such... I mean, Bong Joon-ho, in any of his movies, he's able to weave great social commentary into his movies, and I think this was great, the way he basically, especially from the start, where you have this American, like, not propaganda, but what's the word, like, American point of view on how South Korea should take care of their mess, so to speak, and how that inevitably led to the destruction of their environment. And you just having the Guomo, which is the name of the monster, the Guomo. People apparently think it sounds like a Pokemon. Dead Meat said that, like, almost sounds like a Pokemon, which is fair enough, Guomo. You have, like, how this creature, he's, in reality, it's just trying to survive. If we're being completely honest, it's just trying to survive and live out its life, but because it's this monster, it can't really do that, and then it brings in topics of like post-war stuff, and almost like, not necessarily imperialism, but like how authoritarianism I guess is the best way to word it, and like this post-war kind of mentality with like, should we use, what kind of weapons should we use on this? I think it's just great. I think it's incredible. I think the family unit, it's fantastic. I forget the actor's name, but he was also in Parasite. He's in a bunch of Bong Joon-ho's movie. I think he's an incredible actor, honestly, and I think he did great in this movie. I do think his best performance is in Parasite, to be honest with you. I think he's great. I think, again, the whole family unit is just great. How they're also trying to find their daughter, granddaughter, the niece, the little girl, and just the story with her and how she's trying to survive against the Guomo and the situation she finds herself in. I think it's just great. And honestly, I think it's very fun too. It's very funny. That's the thing with Bong Joon-ho movies in general. Like, you don't expect them to be funny at times, but sometimes they just get ridiculously funny. And I'm sorry, that one scene in like is it a funeral home or the refugee center? Better said, the scene in the refugee center where the family unit is just fighting between each other. It's just comedic gold. Them trying to escape the hospital is comedic gold. Honestly, like there are like very great comedic nuggets throughout this whole movie. And it just shows what Bong Joon-ho is an expert in. Not only the social commentary, but finding the light in some of these dark moments in just the most unexpected ways. I think it's just fantastic. And of course, well written, well acted. I think that doesn't need to be said at this point. Number 21, we have At number 21, we have It Follows. And I'm going to be honest with you. When I first saw this movie, I didn't like it at first. I'm going to be completely honest. I really did not take to this movie when I first saw it back in 2014. I did not care for it. I thought it was dumb. I thought it was like, really? That's it? Like, I just did not get it, if I'm being completely honest with you. The only reason I decided to rewatch it was because they had the steelbook of it available, I think a few years later. A really cool steelbook that I had to admit, you know what, that's pretty cool. That's a pretty cool steelbook. I wouldn't mind having it. Even though I don't care for the movie, I wouldn't mind having the steelbook. So I bought the steelbook. This is the steelbook I'm talking about, by the way. I really like the steelbook. I actually think it's one of my favorite steelbooks. I just love the way it is, the way it feels, the images, both in the front and the back. The images inside, let me just show you here. I actually think, like, honestly, this is one of my favorite steelbooks. Straight up. Like, it's one of those things, even if I didn't like this movie, I just need to have this steelbook. That's honestly the reason I decided to rewatch this movie. So I had the steelbook there for some time. It's one of those things where I just thought to myself, I have the steelbook. I might as well watch this movie. I mean, I spent money on this. I might as well watch it, to be honest with you. And it's one of those things that during the second watch, I got it, so to speak. I'm like, oh, I don't know what I missed that first time I saw that movie. I don't know why I didn't like it. I can't really tell you why. But like the second time I watched it, I appreciated the movie so much more. It was such a more revealing experience watching that movie. I liked it so much more, and it's one of those things that every single time I watch a movie, I like it more and more and more and more. That's kind of my history with It Follows. That's basically, if not for that steelbook, I would have never rewatched that movie. And almost to a certain extent, I almost feel like It Follows now is almost underrated because I don't necessarily hear that many people talk about it anymore. I feel like it was very popular from like 2014 to about 2017, 2018, when there was also talks about an It Follows 2. Like, I feel like during that time span, that 4 or 5 year time span pre-pandemic, a lot of people like really enjoyed it, and like we're always talking about it and saying how it's one of the best movies of, I guess, the 2010s and so far in the 2000s, this, that, and the other. Since then, I don't really feel like many people talk about it, if I'm being completely honest with you. So I kind of wanted to shine a light on It Follows, and just given the history I've had with it, like, wow, it really is a great movie. Like, you do have some very scary parts in there. I mean, them at the beach. You think the friend, I forget the friend's name, but you think the friend is like right there in the ocean, but then you also see the friends. Wait, are they coming to walk, or they're walking right behind you? Like, what's going on? And then you see the attack going on, and just the allegory, or the analogy, so to speak, of how the It Follows monster, the creature, the phantom, whatever you want to call it, is almost like a analogous, you know, like almost a metaphor for like STDs, essentially what it comes down to. And it's like, yeah, we've never had an STD monster, which is kind of a weird thing to say, but honestly, the way they did it was actually like a really great way to do it. It's a very like insane. I'm not gonna lie, that's also just an insane concept in general. Like, let's make an STD monster. Like, I wonder how that conversation came up. Honestly, it really is a great movie. It's very creative, and there's a part of me that's almost like, I'm ashamed that I didn't understand it the first time I saw it. That's my history with It Follows. At number 20, we have At number 20, we have Zodiac, and this is going to be one of maybe 2 or 3 movies I have here on the list. Aren't necessarily horror movies, they're more like horror adjacent movies, like more mystery thrillers, but if I'm being honest, I still kind of consider them horror movies. They're right there on the bubble, and honestly, I'd rather talk about Zodiac, low-key, than some of the other picks I have in my honorable mentions, which we'll get to to later. And it's also one of those things, I like Zodiac, if I'm being honest with you, I do like Zodiac more than It Follows, The Host, American Psycho, Feroci, and Mad God. So, might as well have it here on the list. And Zodiac, I saw it for the first time last year. And it's one of those movies that it took me a while to watch. I bought the movie, actually, for my collection. But it's one of those things where the version I got was actually the HD DVD. This is before I knew there was a difference between HD DVD and Blu-ray. Just like It Follows, I still have the copy. So, here's my HD DVD version of Zodiac. I also have it in Casablanca. These are the only 2 HD DVDs I have. Again, I didn't know there was a difference between HD DVDs versus and Blu-rays. I didn't know there was a difference because this is when I was like first collecting movies. Like that's how early I got these copies of movies. I got them, I started collecting movies when I was 12 years old. I'm 26 years old now, so about 14 years ago. And I know what store I got these at. It no longer exists, but it was a store in Sunset Place, which, rest in peace, that place. But I got these 2 movies. I'm not sure if I got them at the same time, to be honest with you. That part, I don't know. Yeah, I got these at this store in Sunset Place, right by the bowling area, the bowling alley, and right next to the bowling alley, and where they used to sell movie tickets before they moved it upstairs. There was a store, half a comic book shop, half a card shop, but they also had like media there, CDs, DVDs, movies, whatever. So I remember I got those movies there because that's the only place I've ever seen an HD DVD. I've never seen HD DVDs anywhere else, like in person. I've seen them online. So that's why I got it. I'm like, okay, cool. I'm gonna buy Zodiac. I'm gonna buy it. And I'm gonna watch it. Same thing with Casablanca. I'm gonna buy it. I'm gonna watch it. And actually, I probably bought them at the same time. I think about it because I'm pretty sure like the second I realized what an HD DVD was, I probably wouldn't have had an urge to buy them again. Now I think about it, so I probably got these at the same time. So I probably bought these, give or take, let's say 2015, 2016, give or take. Actually, probably even earlier because I don't think that store was there for that long. But yeah, again, the point is, it took me a long time to watch Zodiac. So I watched Zodiac for the first time last year. It was honestly like so suspenseful, so scary. Like that's the thing when it comes to some of these like mystery, thriller, detective movies. Some of those basically border a horror movie. Like not from the 2000s. This is from the 90s, of course. Was Seven. That's another one that basically borders horror movie. Silence of the Lambs. Yes, that's primarily a horror movie, but I have heard discussions that it's not. It basically falls in line like with this. Again, I have another movie on the list, high up on the list. It basically borders that as well, where it has such horrific and suspenseful moments, like that moment in the basement with Mark Ruffalo and the suspect. And that's a horrific moment because you don't know what's going to happen next. When they interview John Carroll Lynch's character, I forget his name right now, but the factory worker, like that's a suspenseful moment because you almost think like, wait, is this really the guy? Even the scene, the Zodiac deaths, like when he kills people, like that is horrific. That's visceral. I almost can't fathom, in a sense, not calling these type of movies horror, even though they are kind of based on real life and do focus more on the detective narrative, the mystery element. I still can't fathom not calling them horror, or at least horror adjacent, which is why they're on the list. And of course, it's great, so fantastic, and like David Fincher, he's always an incredible filmmaker. From Fight Club to this, he's always been an incredible filmmaker. But I do think that this is probably some of his best work. I still think Fight Club is probably his best work. I do very much like the movie he did a few years ago with Michael Fassbender, The Killer. I think like if I had to rank Fincher movies, this would probably be up to like number 2 or 3. Not number 1. That still goes to Fight Club. But this would probably be number 2 or number 3. Like that's how great of a movie this is. And yeah, I just wanted to mention it. Next up, we have at number 19, we have 28 Days Later. So I'm not gonna lie, I haven't seen 28 Years Later, the one that just came out. And I'm also not gonna lie, I actually haven't even seen 28 Weeks Later. I've only ever seen 28 Days Later. I do have 28 Weeks Later somewhere here in my collection. I do have it, I just have never gotten around to watching it. I probably should have done it for this year because the sequel came out this year. But yeah, also kind of seems weird that they went from weeks to years instead of, days, weeks, months, and then years, but that's neither here nor there. Yeah, I think 28 Days Later is one of the best zombie films of this generation of this century so far. Zombie films are probably my favorite subgenre of horror, so you are going to see a few other zombie pictures as we go through the list. But I do think that this is definitely one of the best. Even if you want to go into that whole argument, that they're not actually zombies, they're actually infected, like, who cares? That's a null and void discussion. Get over it. It is what it is. You had the beginnings here of Cillian Murphy. I'm pretty sure he's done roles. I'm pretty sure he did some roles even before this, but I'm pretty sure this is the one that really got him on the map right before Batman Begins, right before Red Eye as well. I'm pretty sure this is the one that really put him on the map right there as an actor. And of course now he did Oppenheimer, and he won the award for Oppenheimer. So, just the journey he's had these past 25 years, it's just incredible. Again, I do think that this 28 Days Later, alongside something like Dawn of the Dead as well, very early on, really gave a rejuvenation to zombie movies that were basically dying off in the 90s. This helped reinvigorate the genre, and it's such an incredible movie. It's very visceral at times as well. I mean, that whole ending in the mansion when Jim is just killing everybody, all the soldiers during that sequence is just great. Yeah, even some of the other stuff, very early on in the movie when he's running away from the church, or in his own house and being attacked by the two or three zombies, that's incredible. All the rules that this movie kind of sets up for zombies, and within this movie, I think it's incredible, because it's also something we see even going forward into other zombie properties going into the future, whether it be something like Zombieland or even The Walking Dead. We see how some of those elements inspired or were influenced by this movie. I know the big one is from The Walking Dead, where Jim and Rick kind of woke up in the same place in the hospital. I think that's one of those situations where the creatives, both mediums, so to speak, kind of just thought about the same idea, and they just happened to come out at around the same time. I don't think that was inspired by it. I don't think The Walking Dead was inspired by that, to be honest with you, or vice versa, but it's still pretty funny how it turned out. But I do think there are some other elements from 28 Days Later that The Walking Dead or Zombieland or some of these other properties took from it. Definitely one of the best zombie movies of this century. The only reason I have it this far down on the list is because, I'm not gonna lie, I just like other zombie movies over this one. Just like my next pick, which is Shaun of the Dead. So yeah, the British really knew how to do it very early on in the years. So yeah, Shaun of the Dead, we take it back to the slow zombies. And the main reason I like Shaun of the Dead over 28 Days Later, I'm going to be honest with you, I like comedy. That's why 28 Days Later is a little bit serious. It is a bit too much of a downer in some respect. Not to take away from it, because I do think in that setting for that movie it works. But if I'm being honest with you, sometimes I just want to have a bit more fun. Again, I just prefer comedy over the serious drama that 28 Days Later is. Okay, that's not to take away from one from the other. I've heard this before about Shaun of the Dead, and I think it would have been wild if this would have happened. I don't think there's a snowball chance in hell this would have ever happened, but I do think it would have been wild had this been nominated for best screenplay at the Oscars. I think that would have been wild. But yeah, no, Shaun of the Dead is just one of the best zombie movies. Not the best. I still have a few other picks up above, but I do think it is one of the best horror movies of the past century, especially zombie movies. Again, it's just great. I would say similar to 28 Days Later in a sense. It has influenced the zombie genre in the future, but I think even more so than that, I think it really put Edgar Wright on the map. I think before this, he was known for Spaced, that show he did with Simon Pegg and Nick Frost, which was what essentially influenced Shaun of the Dead coming forward. But I don't recall, and I could be wrong because I'm not that familiar with Edgar Wright's filmography, but I don't think he did any feature films before this. At least not that I can think of. I think he did some short films, but not feature films. But it's with this movie that we got stuff like The World's End and Last Night in Soho and Hot Fuzz and Baby Driver as well. This is basically where he began his journey outside of space. This is basically where he began his journey. If it's not his directorial debut, either way, it's still an incredible film to have at the beginning of your career, regardless. It's just great, it's funny, and it's one that a lot of people just like. In a lot of sense, it's probably the zombie film that a lot of people do argue is probably one of the best zombie films of this century as well. You can't deny that. I mean, so much that even Romero loved it so much that he decided to put a cameo of Simon Pegg and Nick Frost in Land of the Dead, I want to say. I think he gave him a cameo for that. And even then, in The Walking Dead, there's a zombie that they modeled after Ed. When they arrived to Alexandria, at the very beginning, after, I think it's in Them or The Distance, all the way in season 5, once they enter the gates of Alexandria, there's a zombie that's about to reach the gates, and Rick tells Sasha, hey, kill that zombie. So she snipes it. That zombie is actually modeled after Ed himself, funny enough, which is just incredible. So that, yeah, in a sense, it has influenced the zombie genre even moving forward. Not as much as 28 Days Later, I'll give it that. It hasn't influenced it as much as 28 Days Later, but still great to see it. Definitely the best out of the Cornetto trilogy, that for sure as well. So yeah, next up we have at number 17, we have The Invisible Man from 2020. So this is one that really, I'm pretty sure this is the last movie I saw right before the shutdown happened in 2020. If it wasn't this, it was Upwards, I think. Pixar's Upwards, Onwards. It was either this or Onward. That was the last movie I saw in theaters in 2020. I remember I saw them both around the time of my birthday. We shut down on March 13th. My birthday is March 8th. Honestly, this is one of those movies that really, if not for the whole mess that was 2020, honestly, I feel like this movie probably would have been remembered more. It's one of those things, though. I'm also kind of surprised by The Invisible Man because of how 2020 turned out. I almost expected The Invisible Man to get into the Oscars, whether it be Best Adapted Screenplay, Best Actress for Elizabeth Moss, Best Picture, I'm not even gonna lie, Best Picture, and Best Director, best like visual effects or special effects, whatever. And I don't think it got in anywhere at the end, sadly enough. But I'm like, really? This is the year where, like, basically there's no movies? Like, we had stuff like Minari and Sound of Metal, which were great movies, don't get me wrong, but I'm like, under any other circumstances, these movies will not be getting in this much. Same thing with Coda. Coda winning was, like, a wild thing at the Oscars. Like, as much as I loved Coda, I do not think it should have won Best Picture. Even though, ironically enough, it was my favorite movie of that year, I still don't think it should have won Best Picture. So I'm just thinking, like, really? This is the one movie that couldn't break, like, in this year of all times, this is the one movie that couldn't break in? Like, it was a big hit even before the pandemic. Granted, a week before the pandemic, but still, like, that was kind of wild. But yeah, no, this is such an incredible movie. It really brought the story of The Invisible Man back to current day, you know, turning it from like this potion, so to speak, this chemical reaction, this potion that the scientist drinks, to like, no, this is actually tech based with the cameras and mirrors and all this, that, and the other. And I think the way they did it was just smart. Basically, be an abuse story, or trying to get away from an abuser, and then gaslighting and everything that came about it was just incredible. That scene in the diner, in the restaurant, where she's trying to talk to her sister, Elizabeth Moss is trying to talk to her sister, and the Invisible Man comes there and kills the sister, like slicing her neck and basically pinning the crime on Elizabeth Moss. That's such a tragic scene. Again, it goes back to being held down in this abusive, toxic, gaslighting relationship. The one scene that always bothers me, though, I'm not gonna lie, and I know it bothers a lot of people, it's when she's in the room. She's in her friend's room, in the daughter's room, better said, her friend's daughter's room, and she's like across the room. Like, it's like I'm standing there and she's here, like literally across the room, and the girl, she gets like smacked upside the head or something, and she immediately blames Elizabeth Moss. I'm like, girl, she is quite literally on the other side of the room. How the hell did she reach all the way? Like, her hand would have been needed to be like 6 feet long to smack you upside the head, because she's quite literally on the other side of the room. And it's like, why? Like, if anything, this should be evidence to whatever the hell that she's saying, that, oh, there's an invisible man trying to stalk her and take her down. Like, no, like, outside of that one scene, I think this is a perfect movie. It's a fantastic movie. The only reason I like Coda a little bit more than compared to this movie is because I just wanted a feel-good movie. That's basically what it came down to. But I can't deny that this is not one of the best pictures movies of 2020 itself, and that hellscape of a year that 2020 was. I'm not going to deny that this was one of the best movies of 2020, and of course one of the best movies of the past 25 years. Next up, we have Pearl from 2022. And not gonna lie, Pearl is basically my token pick for the entire trilogy, for the entire X, Pearl, Maxine trilogy, whatever that trilogy is called. To be honest with you, I don't remember what it's called. That may just be called the Pearl trilogy. I'm gonna get Maxine out of the way very fast. I think Maxine is a good movie. Nothing really against it, but it's the fact that Pearl and X were so much better that Maxine kind of just falls by the wayside. And for me, this is one that I struggled picking between X and Pearl. Like, which one do I like more? And it's one of those things where I have rewatched X a lot more than I've rewatched Pearl. But I do feel like Pearl is a better made movie than X. Like, that's kind of how I feel. So it's like, which one do I pick? Do I pick one because I enjoy it more, or do I pick one because of the actual production value, if that makes sense? And at the end, I decided to go with Pearl just because we've seen the imagery in X too many times. Which is basically a classic slasher, and again, no hate towards it. And like I said, I rewatch X a lot more than I rewatch Pearl, in all honesty. But I like the feel that Pearl gives me with this whole Technicolor, like almost like horror Wizard of Oz feel that you get from the movie. I think it's so much better. And I do think that Mia Goth, she does better work in this movie than she does in X, if I'm being completely honest with you, which, granted, it is a bit hard to gauge that, because in X, she's portraying two characters, versus here in Pearl, where she's just portraying the one character, but she's portraying the one character, the younger self of Pearl, which we saw the older self in X, so there's that. But also, like, we see how she came from this, like, these beginnings as a, 17, 18-year-old farm girl, her already kind of being delusional, because her husband's at war, and she really didn't want to marry her husband in the first place, and she wants that excitement of life to get out of her predicament, get out of her little foreign country, so to speak, and her having that escape through movies. I'll be honest, I can relate to that. Maybe not in the same way, to be honest with you, but I have a movie collection. I could definitely relate to that in that sense. Her using that as an escape, and her being rejected by the projectionist, even though it goes into a murderous rage show at the end, you could definitely relate to that too as well. Overall, it's great. This pick is really more so just to comment on the whole trilogy. If I'm being honest, Pearl, I would say Pearl's probably the best one. X, I've rewatched more. I like it a lot more, but I do think that Pearl, just from a technical value, from a storytelling perspective, from a production standpoint, I do think it is better in that respect. And just to comment on Maxine a little bit more on that. I think Maxine is good. It's a good movie. I just think that a lot of people had certain expectations for it, myself included, that when it didn't meet those expectations, we kind of got disappointed. But I do think that Maxine is a movie that, like, in general, will still hold up. I don't think anybody has ever called Maxine a bad movie per se. I think it's just that it's the weakest one of the three. And X is a great movie as well. Again, it's the one I rewatched the most. I think it has the most exciting kills in the series. To be honest with you, it's just great. It's the funnest one. Like, it's also the thing with X. Like, these characters, you don't want them to die. Like, it's kind of tragic because despite the fact that they're living this sinful life by making pornography, it's one of those things you still don't want them to die. That's what it comes down to. Like, these are actually really good people, kind of put in this tough situation, but they're good people. They're good kids. And they're still gonna be killed because you have Pearl being crazy psycho because Howard can't please her because old age and probably some medical issues in the mix. So it is kind of tragic in that respect. But again, this is more just a comment on the whole trilogy. But my pick will still go for Pearl, just because I think from a technical standpoint, it's the best one in the series. Next up, we have The Others. And I'm not going to lie, I was very much surprised when I found that The Others is on the Criterion Collection. That honestly amazed me. So, of course, I picked it up, obviously. And yeah, I saw The Others, I want to say last year. I think that is such a great movie. Gothic horror movies, we don't see them that often. And I feel like when we do, they kind of fall flat on their face in a critic and financial standpoint. Like, they may be great, but it's one of those things that they usually don't get that much notoriety. Not many people really talk about them. Like, something like Crimson Peak even. I don't hear that many people talking about Crimson Peak. Even to a lesser extent, The Shape of Water. Kind of a gothic horror movie. Actually, that one's more of a dark fantasy. And yes, even though that one won the Best Picture award, I don't hear that many people talk about it. Nightmare Alley is kind of in that same realm as well. I know, I kind of just realized that these are all Guillermo del Toro movies. But, like, still, I feel like gothic horror movies, it's not something that we really look into that much. But I do think from this century, The Others is probably the best gothic horror movie we've gotten in the century. I think it's great. The twist at the end is just incredible, and the way it's done, it's incredible. It's one of those things that I'm not going to spoil the twist for those who don't know it yet, but it's one of those things that I knew the twist, but even I was still surprised by how it shaped out, how the twist was handled, and I think it's just incredible. I do think that this is one of the best, like, just best paced movies, one of the best written movies of the century. Like, forget horror for a moment. I just think by and large this is should be considered one of the best movies of the century. If you're doing the top 100, this definitely should be on that list of just some of the best movies of the century so far, period. I think that's how great it is. Sadly, it's still kind of this low on my list because, again, we're talking about favorite, not best. But it's one of those things that if I had, since I've only seen it like a few times, like 2 times in the past year, essentially, it's one that if, let's say I had seen this for the first time like 5 years ago, it's definitely one that probably would have been higher on my list. I think that's why, because since I don't have that much time with it, I haven't had myself to familiarize myself with that much with the movie. That's why it's so low on the list, so to speak. But I do think it's an incredible movie. I think it's one that almost to a certain extent not many people even talk about anymore outside of the twist, because that's the thing. Outside of the twist, everything that comes out before the twist, it's still great. When people talk about this movie, it's only in regards to the twist, and it's like, no, there's this whole other portion of the movie, this whole other hour and a half or whatever of the movie that you should definitely watch. Like, definitely watch it and just like see what's going on. It's suspenseful at times. It's like scary and suspenseful and like edge of your seat sometimes. And it's not the type of movie to have like jump scares galore. Granted, it's nothing like that, thank God. But it is definitely one that, like, you're always at the edge of your seats. You're almost like, I hesitate to call it this, but it kind of makes sense. But it's kind of a cozy movie. Honestly, like, if it's cold outside, I'm in Miami, so it's, like, never cold. But, like, if I was, like, living, I don't know, in Georgia, let's say, you know, like, have the leaves around me, the forest behind me, get a blanket, dark room, close the blinds, shut down the lights, watch this movie on the TV, and I think and just cozy up. That'd be a great way to watch the others. Honestly, if I'm being completely honest with you, like that's the type of movie I almost picture this movie to be, and it's such a great movie. I do think that this is one that a lot of people need to seek out because I feel like over time, similar to like Frailty, for example, similar to like It Follows, I feel like it's one that many people have started to forget about. Again, when they do talk about it, they only talk about the one scene, but it's like again, no, there's a whole other movie right before that you need to watch, and I think it's great. At number 14, we have Hereditary. Okay, let's just get it out the way. Toni Collette should have won the Oscar. The fact that she was not even nominated for the Oscar is just outrageous. Let's get that out of the way. Here's kind of a little hot take in regards to Hereditary. I also think that Gabriel Byrne should have been nominated for an Oscar for Best Supporting Actor. A lot of people talk about Toni Collette and Alex Wolff in this movie. Of course, we talk about the iconic scenes in this movie, with the little girl, if you catch my drift. But for me, one of the best things about this movie is genuinely Gabriel Byrne. I think he gives a fantastic performance in this movie. And I think, I don't feel like anybody ever talks about his performance because you do need to have that grounded element in the movie. If every single character here was just acting wild, borderline demonic, possessed, whatever, I don't think this movie works without that grounded performance, that grounded figure, this case being Gabriel Byrne. And I think he brings so much to the movie, but to that same extent, I don't feel like anybody ever talks about Gabriel Byrne in this movie. And if I'm being honest, sometimes even more so than Toni Collette, even more so than Alex Wolff, I'm more taken by Gabriel Byrne's performance in this movie than I am by them. And I'm not here to say like, oh, Toni Collette did bad work, Alex Wolff did bad work. Again, I agree that Toni Collette should have won the Oscar, to be honest, not just be nominated, but won the Oscar. Alex Wolff probably should have been nominated for an Oscar as well. But if I'm being honest with you, this movie does not work without Gabriel Byrne. You can have all the creepy imagery you want. You can have you have Toni Collette and Alex Wolff going crazy, bashing their head against a desk, cutting off their heads, setting the house on fire or whatever. But I don't think any of this works without Gabriel Byrne. I'm going to be completely honest with you. I definitely think that this is one of those aspects of the movie that a lot of people don't think about or don't look at or don't ever comment on it, so which is why I want to comment on it right now. I think it did such a fantastic job. Outside of that, of course, it's just creepy. It's a creepy movie. I mean, let's be honest. You have this cult right there that is trying to possess the family and this, that, and the other, and trying to take over first off the little girl, first off the daughter, and then that doesn't work, so they're trying to move through the family and trying to possess everyone until it eventually does happen. I think it's great, and it's just, of course, we all talk about that one scene. Again, all these movies have that one scene. Yeah, the one scene, this is definitely one of the most shocking movie scenes, period. When the little girl dies, leave it at that. When the little girl dies, when the daughter dies, that is such a horrific moment, and it's like, you could just see the pain in Alex Wolff's eyes. You could just see the pain in his eyes of oh my gosh, what did I just do? Again, it's the whole movie in general is just fantastically acted. I'm pretty sure this is Ari Aster's first feature film, and he literally came out with a bang. Everything he's done after this, Boys Afraid, for example, it's not to say that it's bad, but it just does not live up to this. That's what it comes down to. It does not live up to this. And it's just an incredible movie. It's definitely one of the best movies of the past century, of the past 25 years of this century, and yeah. Again, Toni Collette, she should have won. She should have won the Oscar. Not just be nominated, but she should have won the Oscar. And the fact that she was snubbed all across the board, that is just, honestly, that's kind of infuriating. Even more than Demi Moore not winning her Oscar, at least she was nominated. Okay, at least she was nominated. This one, she, at the very least, nominate Toni Collette, I guess. But, come on. Realistically, she should have won. I'm going to leave it at that. Next up, oh wow, we're at number 13 already. Nice. At number 13, we have... At number 13, we have A Ghost Story. Yeah, outside of the others and Frailty, maybe throw in Mad God there as well. I feel like this is one of those movies that not many people really talk about this. This is David Lowery. He's the same guy who did The Green Knight, which I do think The Green Knight probably upped his popularity more than A Ghost Story. I feel like, here's the thing with The Ghost Story. A Ghost Story is kind of a personal movie. That's what it comes down to. And I'm not surprised that not many people have seen this movie, and not many people talk about this movie. And you could even argue that this necessarily isn't even a horror movie, much more as it is a dark fantasy, dark drama movie with horror elements. Still adjacent enough, so I'm still going to talk about it. And I do think that out of all the movies here I have on the list, this is probably still one of the more underrated movies. I have on the list, or and definitely one of the more underseen movies on the list outside of like Mad God Frailty, and one more movie I have further up on the list. This is not, yeah, not only is this an underrated movie, I think it's an underseen movie, and I think this is such a great movie. Just not necessarily the tension, but like just the feeling of what could have been, I guess is the best way to word it, between the relationship between the ghost and his wife, like what could have been when he was alive, and all the philosophical discussions that are had throughout the movie when the ghost is observing all these other characters who are living in his house throughout time, like, you know, what could have been, what could have happened in the future had he not died. It's so provocative. Apparently, Kesha, by the way, Kesha the singer, she has a cameo in this movie, which I didn't really find out till like earlier, like this month, funny enough. So that's pretty cool to have. Like, she's basically an extra in the party scene. And when the one guy, the one party goer, he's like talking about philosophy, and apparently she's one of the girls who was around this guy and talking with him. So that's pretty cool to see. But yeah, it's such a, in a lot of ways, it's very much an emotional movie. And I'm not gonna lie, I actually did a short film, one of my episodes of Silent Locale Cinematics, partially inspired by a ghost story in the way that was told, in the way the story is told. And I do have another episode of Silent Locale Cinematics, if I ever go back to that series, if I ever go back to filmmaking, where it's a lot more directly inspired by a ghost story. In a weird way, it's weird to call a horror movie an emotional story, but in a lot of sense, this is an emotional story. It is heartbreaking with everything that happens, and again, similar to the others, just, you know, turn off the lights, get a cozy blanket, and just start watching the movie. And that's kind of how I picture this movie. It's definitely one that you should watch if you haven't already. Like, definitely go out and watch it. It is a movie that's a little bit hard to find, I'm not gonna lie. I'm pretty sure like it's on HBO, to be honest with you, but outside of that, like on physical media, it's kind of hard to find. If I ever see it out there in the wild, I will definitely get it. Like Green Knight, that one popped off immediately after it came out, and you could find that like almost on any given Sunday. But Ghost Story, that one's a little bit hard to find, to be honest with you. So hopefully I find it one day as a Blu-ray and just kind of go from there. But yeah, next up we have again, with these cozy movies, The Witch. So I definitely think that this is Robert Eggers' best movie, for sure. I'll admit, I like it more than The Lighthouse, I like it more than Nosferatu, and I like it more than The Northman. The Northman isn't horror, especially compared to The Lighthouse and obviously Nosferatu, but yeah, I do prefer The Witch over all his other movies. That's not to say that he's a bad filmmaker. I actually like Robert Eggers. I do think that out of the modern day times, he is one of my favorite directors of all time, and especially for modern day directors, I do put him up there. But I do think that The Witch is his best movie. Again, a very cozy movie, just like the others, just like a ghost story. Sit back, relax in a forest, get a blanket, and just start watching. Such a cozy movie, which is, again, really weird to say when you're talking about horror movies. You know, if this was something like, I don't know, Halloween Town, then that makes sense. Which, by the way, Halloween Town, not on this list. I'm not even sure it's 2000s. I'm pretty sure that's 90s. But yeah, that's kind of how I picture these movies. Like, just cozy, sit back, relax, get a cup of joe or hot chocolate, whatever, and just while you're watching. And Anya Taylor-Joy, she does such a fantastic job. Not gonna lie, Anya Taylor-Joy, low-key, one of my favorite actresses, celebrity crush type of thing. Like, she is just so beautiful. But that's besides the point. Like, she does such an incredible job, and there's a reason why she really popped off after this movie. The only other movie I know she was in this before this was in Vampire Academy, and even then, she was like an extra. She wasn't even like an actual character. She was just an extra in Vampire Academy. And I know that movie bombed. And it's one of those things, like, she was an extra, so like, who cares about the extras, low key? Like, this movie really put her on the map, and that's when she went off to do other stuff, like The Menu, for example, and the X-Men movie, which I still haven't seen. But, you know, it's like stuff like that. This helped build her career. Last Night in Soho, she's in that too because of this movie. It's such an incredible movie. Again, if this had been nominated for best like screenplay at the Oscars, that would have been an inspired choice. Honestly, best production design would have been an inspired choice as well. It's such a great movie, and I'm happy to see that Robert Eggers is finally getting his dues, because I feel like between The Witch and The Lighthouse and The Northman, like, yes, people were recognizing him, people liked his work, but they weren't really giving him his dues. It really wasn't until Nosferatu that he was actually finally properly getting his dues, to be honest with you. And again, no hate for Nosferatu, I think that's a great movie as well, but I'm not gonna lie, I feel like Nosferatu is his lesser. Out of the 4 movies he's done so far, I feel like that's his weakest movie. But regardless, I like the fact that he's finally getting his dues. Like I said, for Robert Eggers movies, this is definitely his best one in my opinion. I know a lot of people will put The Lighthouse over The Witch, which I understand. The one thing for me is the fact that The Lighthouse similar to It Follows. I didn't get it at first, so I kind of didn't like it. The only difference is the fact that I respected The Lighthouse, and I kind of understood, okay, this first time I didn't really get it, so I'm going to rewatch it in the future, and hopefully I get it. And that's what I did. And that's not to say that I got The Lighthouse. There are still elements of it that I'm still a little bit lost on, if I'm being honest with you, but it's one of those things that I enjoy it with every single watch. And even then, that first watch, it's not that I didn't like it. It's more like, I don't get it, so I don't know what to make out of this movie. It's more like that. It's not like It Follows, where like I just straight up did not like it. Like It Follows, when I first watched it, I probably would have given it like a 3 out of 10. Whereas for The Lighthouse, when I first watched it, I probably would have given it like a 6 out of 10. Like, it's good. There's some good filmmaking behind this. Of course, the acting is brilliant. This and the other. I just don't get it. And I need to rewatch it in the future to get it more and more and more. Whereas with The Witch, I'm not going to say I got it from day one, from the first time I watched it, but like, I enjoyed it and I wanted to know more about it, and I probably would have rated it like an 8 out of 10. Like, straight up, The Witch is one of my favorite movies of all time. Like, if I had to do a top 100 list, The Witch straight up will be there on the list. I think from a ghost story on, if I were to do a top 100, these, like, the top 13 on this list will probably make my top 100 list of all time. To be honest with you, probably. I don't know, because keep in mind, this is also only the 2000s. That's not to mention all the other horror movies pre-2000 that I like. You know, like Halloween or Psycho or Dracula, the original Dracula and the original Frankenstein. So who knows what I would actually pick. On to the next movie, which is number 11, Back to the Zombies, Dawn of the Dead, 2004, Zack Snyder. And yeah, this is such a great movie. Now, I have seen the original Dawn of the Dead, and I do like it. I think both movies have equal strengths in what they're trying to portray. Again, keep in mind, and it doesn't just come down to like slow zombies versus fast zombies. The social commentary in each movie, although similar, the way it's portrayed is starkly different. And I do like both movies. I will admit, because I grew up with Dawn of the Dead 2004, I do enjoy it more than the original version. I'm going to be completely honest with you. But again, that's no shade on the original version. That's not to say I don't like the original version. But again, I grew up with 2004, so I'm going to like 2004 a bit more. Quick shout out to Disturbed, the band, because Down with the Sickness, that's how I found Disturbed as a band. They had the cover, Johnny Cheese or whatever, the kind of goofy, come on, get down with the sickness, during the montage sequence in the middle of the movie. And of course, at the end, they go with the actual Disturbed, or let me do that one correctly. Come on, get down with the sickness. So yeah, I mean, that was incredible. It showed me Disturbed. That's another reason I like this movie. I can't say that about the original version, that, it showed me Disturbed, or it showed me this metal band that I hadn't heard about before. This showed me Disturbed, which is honestly one of my favorite bands of all time. But even outside of that, it's just great. Sarah Polley, by the way, is now an Oscar-winning actress, or I guess screenwriter, because she won for Women Talking. And it's one of those things, every time I think of Sarah Polley, I'm not gonna lie, I don't think of Women Talking. I think about this. But now, every time I think about Sarah Polley, it's like, oh yeah, you mean the actress from Dawn of the Dead, who is now an Academy Award-winning screenwriter for Women Talking? That one? That's such a wild thing to think about sometimes, which is kind of just funny every time I watch this movie now. Honestly, the zombies here, I mean, again, this is your introduction to fast zombies. Between this and 28 Days Later, this is basically your introduction to fast zombies, because Shaun of the Dead didn't have fast zombies. Zombieland doesn't come out for another 5 years or so. So this is really your introduction to fast zombies, and it's just an incredible movie. I really like it. It really brought Romero back to the modern age, so to speak. Again, I'm pretty sure this is right before Land of the Dead and all the sequel trilogy of the Dead movies. And in a lot of senses, this probably is Zack Snyder's best movie, even over something like his version of Justice League, definitely over like Army of the Dead and Sucker Punch and all those movies. So I'm pretty sure this is probably his best movie as well. It comes down to the fact that this is the one I grew up on. Like, out of zombie movies, this is definitely the one I grew up. Between this and Zombieland, which we'll get to later, those are the zombie movies I basically grew up on. It's what it comes down to, and it's just great. It's incredible. And again, it introduced me to Disturbed, and Sarah Polley is an award-winning screenwriter now, which is just kind of wild to say. Kind of wild to say. I just see her drenched in blood and sweat at the beginning of the movie, and I just kind of remember, oh right, she has an Oscar for screenwriting for Women Talking. That's great. That's wild. It's fantastic. I love it. At number 10, we have Parasite. So, I'm not going to lie. I actually thought Parasite was going to be higher on the list. I'm going to be completely honest with you. But then, really working on my list, looking at it, seeing what feels right, it kind of just feels right that this is in the top 10. I would have found it wild had this missed the top 10, if I'm being honest with you. But I'm kind of surprised that it's right there at number 10. I genuinely thought this would have been within the top 5. That's how high I had it originally. But then I really started thinking, like, what do I like more than this and that, and what do I want to talk about, this, that, and the other. I was like, no, it's here at number 10. Like, out of every single movie that I placed here, this is probably the one movie where its placement surprised me the most. Which is saying a lot because, again, this is Bong Joon-ho. Like I said with The Host, this is probably the movie that overshadowed, this is the movie that overshadowed the rest of his career, both in the past and moving forward. Everything he does moving forward, everything he's done in the past is always going to be compared to Parasite. That's just the reality of the situation. I'm not necessarily going to say it's warranted because I don't think that's fair in any filmography to compare one person's work to the other, to like what they've done between times. I think you could do that in a microcosm. Like, let's say, if you just want to compare Parasite to The Host, sure, but if you want to compare Parasite to the rest of his career, I think that's kind of unfair. Like I said with The Host, he has some great social commentary here in this movie. In this case, between the lower class and the upper class, and how they both handle different situations, how they both handle their own personal storms, so to speak, their own personal family drama, and everything that comes out of it. And just the imagery with the actual literal levels, so to speak, from them living in this high class, not apartment, sorry, this high class house at the top of the, I guess, hill or mountain or wherever in South Korea they live in. And then every time the poor family has to go home, they have to literally climb down the stairs back to their basement dwelling that's literally underneath, basically underground almost. It's just incredible. The imagery behind it is incredible. I very much do like it. The ending is wild. It's definitely one of the most wild endings I've seen in a movie. Definitely up there. I'm very happy, honestly. I'm very happy that it won Best Picture at the Oscars. I think that's an incredible thing. Yes, you could argue if this is actually a horror movie or if it's more of a thriller. I'll be honest, this is the one movie where part of my hesitation for putting it on the list, I'm not gonna lie, is because I didn't know if I should really classify this as a horror movie. It's one of those things that for the longest time I did classify it as a horror movie. Then I saw it again last year and I'm like, wait, is it really a horror movie or is it just like a thriller? Is it like just a thriller, like a crime thriller almost? And I'm still going to put it, I feel like if anything it's still horror adjacent. But I do think this is the one that part of my reasoning for maybe why it's this low is because I do kind of question how much of a horror movie this is. But I'm still going to put it here. I don't care. It's still on the list. I still want to talk about it, so here we go. It's such an incredible movie. But I do think that the main actor should have been nominated for Best Actor, basically. The father in this movie, the poor father, who the same guy who was in The Host. I think he should have been nominated for an Oscar because I think he gave such an incredible performance. At the very least, give him the Oscar nomination, not necessarily the win. Overall, such an incredible movie. I do think that, again, the one thing I don't like about this movie is the fact that it basically overshadowed the rest of Bong Joon-ho's career. I think that's what it really comes down to. But next up, we have at number 9... At number 9, we have The Substance. And yeah, I'm just gonna get this out of the way. Demi Moore got robbed. I don't care. I'm still gonna die. I'm gonna die on that hill. Demi Moore got robbed. I do not think that Mikey Madison should have won the Oscar. I think that's actually a travesty. I think Demi Moore should have won. It's, and I'm not gonna lie. Mikey Madison winning the Oscar kind of downgraded Honora for me. Like I liked Honora. I didn't love Honora, but I liked Honora. I did think it was one of the best movies of the year. I will say that. I do think Honora was one of the best movies of the year, but I just prefer The Substance so much more. I think Demi Moore should have won the Oscar. I'm not gonna lie, I'm still kind of angry at the fact that Mikey Madison won the Oscar. Like, really? I'm sorry, but really? You're gonna win for a stripper movie? Like, get out of here. So I'm really not pleased. I still to this day, I'm not pleased by the fact that she won. I still say that she needs to prove herself. I'm gonna give her about another year to prove herself. I said this comparison early in the year, but it's one of those things. Had Austin Butler won his Oscar for Elvis over Brendan Fraser, I would have said the same thing. Austin Butler needs to prove himself to make sure that yes, this Oscar is deserved, and he definitely proved himself with stuff like Dune and The Bike Riders, for example. I'm still waiting for that for Mikey Madison. I'm still waiting to see what she does next, to see if she's worthy of the Oscar. And I'm sorry to put it in that context, but that's how I feel, honestly. I kind of felt the same way also about 10 years ago when Mark Rylance won over Sylvester Stallone. I think Sylvester Stallone should have won that one, and Mark Rylance, he didn't do really any good work after his win. He did stuff like the BFG, sure, which was like it was fine, but it wasn't good. If I'm being honest with you, like I think he gave a decent performance, but nothing that blew my socks off. So it's kind of like that same thing. I just don't like that Mikey Madison win, like at all. At all. That's a travesty. No, Demi Moore should have still won. I'm still gonna hold to that. That mini rant aside, it's a fantastic movie. The Substance is a fantastic movie. It's one that blew everybody away last year. Like I am genuinely shocked it got into Best Picture and Best Director for that movie, you know, for Corley Farge for Best Director. I'm like genuinely shocked that it got that much recognition, that much love from the Oscars. It would have been wild had it won Best Picture or Best Director. That would have been wild, but it didn't. It just won Best Makeup. It's still a great movie. I love it. I think it's great, fantastic. It's such a creative movie, you know, having that idea of, you know, what would your younger self, so to speak, do, or a younger version of you, so to speak, do under these circumstances, and would they abuse the power that they're being given to become younger? I think that's an incredible topic to touch upon. It's so well written, such a smart concept for a film, and I love it. I very much do appreciate it. Going back to the Oscars, I almost think that Margot Qualley should have been nominated for Best Actress. I think that would have been an inspired choice. I do think that the race was a little bit too tight for it to squeeze in, but had that happened, that would have been an inspired choice. That would have been great. Overall, such a great movie. Definitely one of my favorite movies of last year, especially over Honora. Definitely one of my best favorite performances of last year, especially over Mikey Madison. It's such a great movie. It's a movie that I'm very happy came out, especially because Demi Moore, she even talked about how, like, hey, I'm not even sure I want to be acting anymore, and this is what inspired her to continue to do acting. Corley Farge was already on the map. She did Revenge a few years earlier, but I think this is definitely something that really helped her establish herself as a director on a more international scale, if that makes sense. So I think it's such a great movie, such a fantastic movie. Definitely do check it out if you haven't already. Next up, we have at number 8, we have Sinners, the only movie from this year. And not gonna lie, I very much hesitated at first putting this movie this high up, because I'm thinking, like, it's only from this year though, like, what am I doing? But then I'm also thinking The Substance is from last year, and I'm still putting it on the list at number 9. And if I'm being honest with you, I do like Sinners more than The Substance. Similar to Parasite, I'm kind of surprised at its placement. The only difference is I'm kind of surprised that it's this high up on the list, because I'm like, it came out this year. Do I really like it that much? And I think it's incredible. Such an incredible movie. I did a review for this movie a few weeks ago, so if you guys want to hear my further thoughts on that, go check out that video. But like, I think it's such a creative movie. I can't wait to see how this does at the Oscars. I really hope it does land at the Oscars with Best Picture and Best Director, Best Screenplay, Best Actor for Michael B. Jordan, hopefully Best Supporting Actor for Delroy Lindo, Best Production Design, stuff like that. I really hope. I'm not saying it has to win every single award. I'm not saying that, but I definitely do hope that it gets nominated for all these awards. I think that would be stupendous for this movie, especially because it's a movie that we don't really see that often. I mean, first off, it's talking about Black history and just Black culture and the way that music inspired that culture, especially during this time in the 1930s when this movie was taking place. It very much did inspire it. But on top of that, you know, this is From Dusk Till Dawn. Basically, this is basically From Dusk Till Dawn. A genre switch halfway through the movie. It's just incredible the way it's done. It's incredible. The music behind it, it's incredible. Of course, the one song, you know, I Lied to You, that's a fantastic song. And the way that the filmmaking is done during that scene, when it's basically when the barn transforms into like this history of African music, it's just incredible. I enjoyed this movie so much. It's incredible. Like that one scene of I Lied to You, like I keep rewatching that one scene alone, and it's just like I hear it in my head, like you know, I lied to you, you know, to the very end where he hits that, I know, you know, I lied, like it's just an incredible movie in my opinion, and I like everything that it does. The action sequences, of course, are great, especially at the ending where Michael B. Jordan is just blasting off the KKK. Even the post-credit scene, which apparently a lot of people have missed or haven't watched, they left the movie too early. That definitely watch that end credit scene at the end. It's just incredible. It really ties the whole movie together. I think it's a great movie. Again, if you want to hear my further thoughts on it, I did a review for it, so go check that one out. But yeah, that's why I have it here at number 8. At number 7, we have At number 7, we have Final Destination. And similar to Pearl, this is more of a catch-all for the entire franchise, so I'm just going to discuss the whole Final Destination franchise here, but I'm only going to specifically point out the first one. Now, if I'm being honest with you, I do prefer, my favorite Final Destination movie is the second one, but for this one, I'm only going to talk about the first one. I'm primarily going to be talking about the first one because it's the one that began the franchise, and I mean, just similar to It Follows, where like, oh, an STD is the killer, so to speak. And what a creative concept is it for Death himself to be the killer. I think that's incredible. People escaping death and death following you to try to cut the loose ends and kill you once and for all. I think that's just creative. Even in this first movie between Devon Sawa and all the other cast in this movie, there's a reason why this started a franchise. Like I would have been shocked actually had we not gotten a Final Destination 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Given the concept, it would have been shocking had this not gotten a sequel. And even more to that, originally this wasn't even supposed to be a movie. On top of that, originally this was supposed to be an episode of the X-Files. I'm not going to deny, it would have been great. I've never seen the X-Files. I'll start off with that. But I will say to this, that I'm pretty sure it would have been a great TV episode of the X-Files, but it's one of those things where it would have been trapped in the X-Files. Like, that concept probably wouldn't have been turned into a movie at all afterwards. So the fact that it left, so to speak, the X-Files universe and became its own thing after a while, and the fact that it turned out the way it turned out, it's just incredible. Of course, you have all the other movies afterwards. Final Destination 2, again, that's my favorite movie of the franchise, if I'm being honest with you, but I think that's a great movie. Final Destination 3 is kind of like the forgotten child in a lot of senses because not a lot of people talk about it. I do know a lot of people do consider the third movie to be their favorite movie of the franchise, but for me, it's just underrated. It's one of those things that's competing with Final Destination 1 and 2 and 5 and now even 6. We don't talk about Final Destination 4. But, you know, that's kind of the one sad thing about Final Destination 3, that there's a reason it's overshadowed because all the other movies around it are, like, do so much better stuff, bigger stuff. I will say, I do think it could be better than Final Destination 5. Final Destination 5, I've started to flip-flop a lot recently, to be honest with you, because I've started to see a lot of problems in Final Destination 5 in terms of the storytelling, where I don't think it's as strong as it used to be when I used to think about it. But yeah, Final Destination 3, I still do think it's a great entry in the series. Final Destination 4, that exists. That's a movie. Moving on, Final Destination 5, again, for the longest time, Final Destination 5 was one of my favorite movies. I will admit that this year is when Final Destination 5 did kind of take a downturn for me, because I started to see a lot of storytelling storytelling issues with the movie, better said, and there's just some stuff that I kind of don't enjoy about that movie as much as I used to in the past. So I will say that, but even then, I still respect Final Destination 5 a lot. And of course, Final Destination 6 came out this year with a bang. You know, a lot of people are considering that movie to be the best in the franchise. I'll be honest, I'm not one of those people. I don't think it's the best movie in the franchise. I would put it within top 3 or top 4. Again, that's how I would rank it, but of course, top 5. I mean, you just have to be better than Final Destination 4. That's really what it comes down to. Final Destination is my favorite horror franchise. I'm gonna say that right off the bat. Final Destination is my favorite horror franchise. I haven't seen that many of the Halloween movies. I haven't seen that many of the Scream movies. I haven't seen that many of the Chucky movies. Friday the 13th, Nightmare on Elm Street. I'll be honest, outside of horror, it's very hard for me to get invested in a movie franchise. To be honest with you, this is one of the few movie franchises that I have actively been investing my time into. And it's incredible, and I do love the wider universe. Look, I've done a lot of videos, especially earlier this year, talking about the wider Final Destination universe. So you have a bunch of stuff you can watch in regards to that, but I really like Final Destination and the whole franchise in general. Again, I'm just specifically shouting out the first one because it's the one that started it all, and it's probably the easiest one to talk about, to be honest with you. But overall, the franchise is incredible, and that's why it's here on the list at number 7. I will say that, now that I'm looking at this, and given how much love I've given to this franchise, it's kind of wild that I'm only putting this at number 7. But granted, I only put Final Destination 1 as number 7. If we were doing this for the entire franchise, this probably would have been number 1 easily. But that's neither here nor there. But in terms of just the first one, the first Final Destination that came out in 2000, I'm leaving it here at number 7. On to number 6, we have... At number 6, we have Triangle. And yeah, this is probably another movie that not many people have heard about, not many people have talked about. I don't blame y'all. I'm pretty sure this movie's on Tubi. So if you haven't seen it, go on Tubi and watch it. This is Triangle from 2009. It stars a pre-Thor Chris Hemsworth, by the way. He filmed this right before he did Thor, but it came out after Thor. If I'm not mistaken, I think that's the timeline. He did it right before Thor, but it came out right after Thor, so they kind of were able to bank on Hemsworth for this movie. But yeah, this is such an incredible movie. It's one that I randomly caught on TV one day. I was so entranced by it, by like the time loop plot of it all. I don't know how to discuss this movie because I know not many people have seen it, so I don't want to spoil you guys who haven't seen it. But it's definitely one that you guys should go out and see. Again, it's on Tubi. I think the acting is fantastic across the board. Honestly, I think it is for the type of movie that this is. The acting is great. Pacing and the tension behind the movie is also fantastic, and everything that's going on in regards to this time loop. And that's all I'm going to say, because even me saying a time loop is honestly a spoiler, if I'm being honest with you. I'm not going to discuss anything else, but everything else about this movie is just so tension-filled, because after a while, you kind of realize what's going on, and it's like, oh my gosh, so wait, that happens then, and then this happens there, and because that happened now, this has to happen now, and all this, that, and the other. I think it's incredible. I think it's one that not many people ever talk about. Every time I hear somebody talk about this movie, it's like, yes, you know this movie? Thank God! Because like it's one that I just do not hear anybody talk about, even more so than Frailty, even more so than like Mad God. And this is one that I hear nobody talk about ever. Like I seldomly hear people talk about this. Every time somebody does talk about this, it's like, yes, please talk about this movie, and please talk about how great this movie is. This is the type of movie that needs to be seen more. Like honestly, Arrow Video or Shout Factory, they should like release this movie straight up. Like acquire the rights to this movie, Shout Factory or Arrow, and just mass distribute this movie, because that's the other thing with this movie. It's very hard to find, because I'm pretty sure it's just region locked to Australia. Like those are the only Blu-rays I see, the ones that are just region locked to Australia. I haven't seen any American releases or region 1 releases or whatever for America, and the few that there are, it's like stupidly expensive, at least when I searched them up last. So it's one of those things like they need to have like a region unlock this. I mean, I guess I could buy the Australian version, but even then, I don't think my Blu-ray player is a region-free Blu-ray player. Definitely one that should be watched. It's just wow. That's how I'm gonna say. It's wow. I'm past the time loop stuff. I'm not gonna spoil anything else about this movie, but if you haven't seen it, go watch it right now. At number 5, we have more zombies with Train to Busan. So, funny enough, I actually saw this about a year ago, I want to say, with my dad on TV. He caught it on TV, and we were watching it in Spanish. So, pretty interesting to watch that, a Korean movie with Spanish dubs. Yeah, this is such an incredible movie. I'm pretty sure this is one of the last zombie movies that came out right before Romero died, I want to say. I wonder what his thoughts were on it. But yeah, Train to Busan, definitely one of the best movies of the past 25 years. Definitely one of the best zombie movies of the past 25 years. Far none. I mean, it has such an emotional story between the father and the daughter. It's so emotional. It's so great. It's so well done. And even to that, you still have the social commentary between like the rich upper class versus the poor middle class, or whatever, the poor class. And you have that social commentary. You also have that dichotomy, so to speak, of good and evil between like the one rich businessman who's a complete a-hole, to be honest with you, and is willing to sacrifice anybody to save himself, versus the father, who, yes, he does begin the movie as a bit of a prick, as a bit of an unattentive father, but throughout the movie he becomes that attentive, that hero father that his daughter wants him to be. And of course you have Don Lee. That's the only actor's name who I remember, because he went on to do Eternals a few years later. But yeah, Don Lee, of course, the big guy, him holding off those zombies by the door and then him getting bit in the process. That is such a tragic scene. For me, it's probably one of the more rewatchable. Like, if you just tell me, hey, let's watch Train to Busan, I'm like, yes, immediately, yes, let's go watch it right now. Why didn't you recommend this earlier? Like, that's the type of movie that this is for me, Train to Busan. By the way, Train to Busan does have a sequel. We know this, Peninsula, which was so-so. But alongside Peninsula, this also has an animated prequel called Seoul Station. Now, a lot of people don't tend to like Seoul Station because there's a twist at the end that not many people like. I didn't mind the twist, if I'm being honest with you. I've only seen the movie the one time, but I didn't mind the twist that much. It's one of those things I'd have to go back and rewatch it to see how I feel about the twist officially, so to speak, but I didn't mind the twist when I first saw the movie. But I do definitely think you should go check it out. I'm pretty sure it's on Tubi as well. Seoul Station, the prequel. Just check it out. It's fun. And it's one of those things that it's Seoul Station, Train to Busan, and then Peninsula. But when they came out, it was Train to Busan, Seoul Station, Peninsula. So that's kind of how it turned out. But definitely go check it out. It's great. It does explain some stuff in regards to the virus as well. Not as eloquently as I would say Train to Busan does. The one thing with Train to Busan that it's not that I don't like it, but it makes no sense because they've never followed up on it, whether it be in Seoul Station or in Peninsula. But at the very beginning of the movie, you have this truck driver who runs over a zombified deer. He gets up and runs away into the wild. And the reason I don't like that scene is because we never follow up on the zombified deer. We never see any zombified animals. And again, it's not something that we see in Peninsula either. It's not something we see in Soul Station, so it's kind of weird. So that intro has always kind of weirded me out, so to speak, because it's like we've never followed up on it. And that would be an interesting concept had they followed up on it, but they've never followed up on it. They've never commented on the fact that there's a zombified deer or zombified deers or animals or whatever. And that's the one kind of weird thing that's coming out of that movie, in my opinion. I would have much rather the deer be replaced with like a person, I guess. On to number 4, which is at number 4, we have Black Swan. And yes, this won Natalie Portman the Oscar for Best Actress. And yes, this is definitely a horror movie, another psychological horror movie. I feel like this one, to a certain extent, has been talked to death in regards to how great of a movie this is, of how iconic of a movie this is. But at the same time, I also feel like it's a movie that over time has slowly been forgotten about. Not to the same degree as It Follows, I'll say that much. But I do think to a certain extent, people just know this as the horror ballet movie that Natalie Portman won her Oscar for. And it's like, no, it's a lot more than just a horror ballet movie, you know? It's a lot, way more than just that. I definitely do think this is one of the best horror movies of the past 25 years. Definitely one that you guys should watch. It's just such an incredible movie. It's one that, again, mesmerized me from the first time I watched it. I was just like hooked onto it from moment one when I first watched this. And it's such an incredible movie that, like, her doing anything to advance in her chosen career of ballet. And I know how that feels as an artist myself. I know how it feels to be in your career, to want something so bad and constantly get rejected from it. And to a certain point, you just get to your wit's end and you'll basically do anything for that promotion, so to speak, for that validation, so to speak. I feel it. Even though I'm no longer a filmmaker, there are times where I've definitely felt like Nina Sayers in this movie, where she will do just about anything. And these rumors, they just start flying. It's like, no, I didn't do that. And yet people still believe it. I've felt that, honestly, personally. I've felt that. Not to get too deep into it, but I've felt that. And it's just so hard sometimes to like just deal with that. And the way that it's portrayed in this movie, it's just fantastic. I mean, Darren Aronofsky, I think he's did a fantastic job in directing this movie with everything that he had to do with this movie. It's just fantastic. And of course, relating the story of Swan Lake, the Swan Princess, to Black Swan, to what's going on in this actual film. It's just incredible. I like that dichotomy, that relationship between fiction and reality in this movie. It's just fantastic, and it's just great. You do have some horrific moments when Nina transforms into the bird, I guess, or into the swan for a moment. Transforming into the swan, I think that's great. I think in terms of transformation sequences, that almost rivals American Werewolf in London to a certain extent. Like, that's such an incredible transformation right there as well. It's fantastic when she's turning into a bird. Trippy dream sequences as well is incredible. Overall, such an incredible movie. And I do think it's one that a lot of people need to watch. And it's just fantastic. If you haven't seen it already, go out and watch it like right now as well. At number 3, we have Silenced. Now, above any movie here that I have on the list, whether it be here on the main list of the top 25 or even the honorable mentions, this is by far the most underseen movie I have on the list. This is probably the one movie that you guys have not heard about. And to be completely honest with you, I get it. This is a South Korean movie from 2011 that wasn't really a big hit outside of South Korea. It's really much more of a crime mystery thriller, if I'm being honest with you. But in a lot of ways, Silenced is one of the scariest movies of all time for me, because it's based on real events. This is stuff that happened in real life. So much so that actual South Korean laws were changed because of this movie. Like, that's how impactful this movie is. I will never stop singing the praises of this movie. So Silence, this is about a teacher who he's working at the school for special needs kids, and he finds out that some of the teachers and the principal of the school are abusing their students in inappropriate ways, if you catch my drift. He's trying to put a stop to this, to the abuse against the kids that's going on. And this is something that happened in real life in South Korea. This is something that became a whole media showcase in South Korea during this time because of how easily the perpetrators got off. Again, it's because of this movie that brought light to this issue, that actual South Korean law was changed. Like, if you want to talk about some of the most impactful movies of all time, this easily has to be in the conversation, like, of all time. Easily has to be one of the most influential movies, because yes, you could talk about how Jaws created blockbusters, for example. You could talk about how Psycho, created like twist endings. How Dracula and Frankenstein, they started monster movies and all this, that, and the other. But like, how many movies, like, forget horror, how many movies out there can you say changed actual laws, like government laws? Silence did that, and it's such an incredible movie. And again, this is one of those movies that I wish I could find somewhere on Blu-ray, because there's like no easy way to find this movie on Blu-ray. The only reason I saw it is because it's on Netflix. That's the only reason I saw it. And even then, the only reason I heard about it is because there's a video on it on YouTube that I found one day, and I just happened to find the video, watch the video. I was so interested and intrigued by the video that I'm like, where can I watch this movie? It was there on Netflix. It's like from the time I stopped watching the video, or the video ended, to the time I watched it was maybe like 5 minutes. If that, like, that's how much of an impact that video had on me when they described Silenced and how it influenced everything in real life. It's on that. I'm pretty sure it's still on Netflix. If not, God help you in trying to find that movie, because it is a genuine pain in the ass to try to find that movie. Like, it does not have an American release, and that honestly breaks my heart, because I want to have this movie in physical media, to be honest with you. And the only way you could find it on physical media here in America is if you do like the bootleg copies of it. And I'm like, I kind of don't want to do that, if I'm being honest with you. I don't know how I feel about that. Have Criterion, have Arrow, Shout Factory, I don't know who, but have somebody pick up this movie to distribute, because it's such an impactful and powerful movie for like the love of Christ. Somebody pick up this movie and share it out to the world. Like, I don't care if it's part of the Janus collection on Criterion. Like, this needs to be somewhere seen out there. And it kind of just baffles me that this movie that had such an impact on actual South Korean law is so hard to find, honestly, because it was a big hit. Like, outside of the actual real world law applications of it, this also genuinely was a big hit. On top of that, a lot of people do like the acting and the writing for this movie. Like, even if this was a fake story, this would have still been a big movie, but I think with the added bonus, sadly, of the real life implications, like, that's why it became so much bigger. And again, I'm just kind of baffled by the fact that it's so hard to find here in America, and I really do hope that I get to find it officially one day and have it in my collection. Definitely go watch this movie. At number 2, we have So at number 2, we have Zombieland. So yeah, for me, Zombieland is my favorite zombie movie of all time. Outside of The Walking Dead, it is my favorite zombie thing. Honestly, like, Zombieland is the movie that got me into The Walking Dead. It's the movie that got me into zombies. Yes, I had seen other zombie stuff like Dawn of the Dead and Scooby-Doo on Zombie Island. Like, I had seen other zombie stuff before that. But Zombieland is a movie that really got me into zombies. That really wanted me to explore how would it feel living in a zombie universe, in a zombie world. Like I said, Zombieland is essentially what led me to The Walking Dead. Like, that's how much of an influence Zombieland had on me. Jesus Christ, I can't talk. Had on me. Like, that's how much of an influence it had on me, and it's just fantastic. And Zombieland, Double Tap, let me just touch upon it a little bit. I like Double Tap. However, it doesn't live up to the original Zombieland. But it's a fun movie. I'm not going to deny it. It's a fun movie. But again, it just doesn't live up to the original Zombieland. And I mean, I actually do have a poster of Zombieland right there. I do have a poster of Zombieland right there. So you guys can see. Like, that's how much I love Zombieland. Like, again, one of my favorite movies. Again, let me see if I can do this correctly. Again, one of my favorite movies of all time, for sure. First of all time, and definitely one of my favorite horror movies of all time, and one of my favorite zombie movies of all time. So much I even have the poster of it right there. That's how much I love that movie. So yeah, for me, Zombieland honestly had such a huge influence on my life, because it's the one movie that opened the door for me in terms of zombies. I would say, alongside Final Destination, it's one of the few movies that really helped me have a love for horror movies in general. I would say alongside something like Final Destination and then Scooby-Doo, for example. Like, those are the stuff that really helped me have this love for horror in general. And it's such an incredible movie. I really do like it. When I say it's generally one of my favorite movies of all time, I'm being serious. I know it may sound like a joke because, oh, it's just Zombieland. But no, I'm being serious. It genuinely is one of my favorite movies of all time. If I were to do a top, 25 favorite movies of all time, Zombieland, believe it or not, would actually be on that list. That's how serious I am. It's such an incredible movie. And I'll be honest, and maybe this seems kind of random in the way this is ordered, But in a lot of ways, I sometimes even like this movie more than my number one pick, the one I'm about to say. The only reason I have my number one as my number one is because I almost feel like that number one pick is the definitive horror movie of the 21st century. That's really what it comes down to. Speaking of my number one, it is... So at number one, we have The Cabin in the Woods. So as I just said, I feel like even though I sometimes like Zombieland a lot more than The Cabin in the Woods, I do feel that The Cabin in the Woods is the definitive horror movie of the century. You can say whatever you want about Sinners, The Substance, Final Destination, Black Swan, all these other movies, Shaun of the Dead, 28 Days Later, Zodiac, It Follows, whatever. You can say whatever you want about all these movies, but I feel for me, just in my heart, when you talk about horror in the 21st century of the past 25 years, nothing has been as emblematic of what a horror movie is than The Cabin in the Woods. I would say it's really in the 2000s that we really started seeing comedy in horror. Granted, it started a little bit earlier with Scream back in the 90s. And yes, we've had horror and comedy combined in other stuff like Nightmare on Elm Street or even Young Frankenstein. But I feel like The Cabin in the Woods, is the perfect combination of both horror and comedy. You know, even more so than something like Shaun of the Dead or Zombieland. And on top of that, this is something that explores horror as a whole. If all these movies were in the Cabin in the Woods universe, so to speak, we could see how the characters did the decisions that they did because of what's going on in the cabin down below, so to speak. Like that's how emblematic of just horror in the 2000s, of horror in the 21st century this is. How this movie basically relates to that. It's such an incredible way, and the way it does it. I love this movie so much. And again, I will admit, like I just said, I will admit that there are times where I maybe prefer Zombieland more than Cabin in the Woods. In a lot of ways, Cabin in the Woods is just so emblematic. The way it basically deconstructs the genre is just so incredible. And I don't think we've had any other movie come close to deconstructing the genre as it was in Cabin in the Woods. Maybe the scary movies, to be honest with you. Maybe those movies, but even then, those don't really hold much of a light when it comes to The Cabin in the Woods. It's such an incredible movie. I mean, all the characters are... I kind of hesitate to say great because they all fit the role, but I think because of how perfectly they fit the role, both when they're smart and dumb, because of course over the course of the movie they have to become dumb, you know. But I feel like the way they're done is just so incredible, and again, so just emblematic of what a horror movie truly is. Again, if you want to talk about a movie that just completely deconstructs the genre, you're talking about The Cabin in the Woods. And for me, not only is it one of my favorite horror movies of the past 25 years, but just by and large, I do think it is the best horror movie of the past 25 years. Yes, you can talk about how Black Swan was nominated for Best Director and Best Picture and won Natalie Portman the Oscar. You could talk about how Sinners talks about the history of black music from the past to the present to the future and all that. You can talk about how The Substance talks about women and showcases how women have to suffer, so to speak, from being young to old on this and the other. You can talk about Frailty and its religious horror context, with Mad God being such a trip of a movie with animation. How 28 Days Later and Shaun of the Dead and Train to Busan and Zombieland, these are some capital zombie movies. You could talk about all that. You know how Final Destination created one of the best horror franchises ever. You could talk about all of that. But I do think, in my heart, I do believe that Cabin in the Woods is just the most emblematic movie. It just showcases what 2000s horror movie is. It distills everything, the formula of what a horror movie is, both from even back in the 2000s to now, and even going forward. I feel like it just distills. It's the perfect deconstruction of a horror movie into this movie. I think it's just perfect in every which way. I know at the beginning of the video I said that this, in a lot of ways, is supposed to be my list of favorite horror movies, but let's be honest, there is a certain element of best tied in with this, and I'm not gonna lie. When it comes down to it, brass taxes, The Cabin in the Woods, for me, is not only is it one of my favorite horror movies of all time and of the past 25 years, but I also do very much believe at its core, it is also one of the best horror movies of the past 25 years. It's such an incredible movie, and I really do much love it. Alright, so now I'm going to be talking about some honorable mentions, and for these, I'm just going to go in order of release. So I have movies going from 2002 to 2022. First off, Scooby-Doo. The first off, live-action Scooby-Doo from 2002. Yeah, I'm going to have it here. I've always loved Scooby-Doo. I'm kind of disappointed that I wasn't able to put Scooby-Doo in this list. I wasn't able to put that many children's horror movies. Actually, I don't even think I have a single children's horror movie on this list now I think about it. I guess Shaun of the Dead is the closest thing we have to a children's horror movie, or Zombieland. But it kind of saddens me that I don't have any children's horror movies here, because that definitely is a genre in and of itself. Stuff like Monster House as well. But yeah, Scooby-Doo for me. I mean, I've always loved Scooby-Doo, so I wanted to give it some kind of representation here, even if just in the honorable mentions. So there we go. Next up, from 2004, we have Saw. Not gonna lie, I did consider putting this one on the list, but it's one of those things where I am just not that familiar with Saw as I would like to be. I've only seen it a handful of times, and the last time I saw it was probably like 3 or 4 years ago. Saw is the only movie from that franchise I've ever seen. I haven't seen any of the other like 10 Saw movies, so that also has a certain element to it. But I still respect it a lot, and I do think it should be an honorable mention. It basically started the torture porn era in the early 2000s, so why not? Next up, we have War of the Worlds. So the only reason I didn't put this one on the list is because I kind of struggled with considering this a horror movie. I kind of see this more as a sci-fi movie. And again, I mean, I had a lot of stuff that bordered on horror movies here, like with Parasite and Zodiac, for example, and Silenced. So I could have definitely added this to the list, but I felt like this was just a touch too far. It still is a horrific movie in a lot of moments, but I felt it more fair to be an honorable mention. Next up, we have Pan's Labyrinth. I would say similar to Saw, I just haven't seen it that many times. Last time I saw it was also a few years ago, probably like 5 or 6 years ago. So it's one that I haven't really seen that much. But Pan's Labyrinth, I really do like the imagery of Pan's Labyrinth, similar to American Psycho, where I feel like the imagery of the movie is a lot more iconic than the movie itself. That's kind of how I feel about it. But regardless, I do think it's one that should still be shouted out. Next up, we have Trick or Treat. Similar to Pan's Labyrinth, I feel like the imagery of Trick or Treat is a lot more iconic than the movie itself. But I just wanted to shout it out. Sam, the little pumpkin boy, is hysterical. Just him watching everything, all the mayhem, chaos go around him. It's just funny, hysterical. I really do much love it. And it's definitely one I should rewatch soon. Granted, October's about to end, so who knows? Next up, we have The Mist. I mean, the ending here is just iconic here. I think that's kind of the one bad thing about The Mist, is the fact that the ending, the twist ending here, the ending is so iconic that it kind of overshadows the rest of the movie. But that being said, it's still a great movie. I do have some pacing issues with the movie at the start, which is why it's not on the list. That, and again, the ending is just so much more iconic than the rest of the movie, but I still want to give it a shout out. Next up, we have Circle, and this is one that I also struggled putting it on the list just because I'm not entirely sure if this would be considered a horror movie or just a thriller movie, but I still want to shout it out. I think it's a great movie, definitely one of my favorite screenplays, honestly. I think it has a pretty good screenplay, creative screenplay with everything that it discusses, so definitely do go check it out if you haven't already. Pretty sure it's still on Netflix. Next up, we have Split. Now, I'm not gonna lie, I'm not the biggest fan of M. Night Shyamalan, mostly because I just haven't seen that many of his movies. It's not that he's a bad filmmaker, per se. I know there's some argument to be had right there. Again, this is one that, is it a horror movie? Is it not a horror movie? It kind of falls in line with that as well. And I'll be honest, I only saw it the one time back in 2016, 2017, but I still want to shout it out because it has had such a huge impact on movies, even moving forward with the discussion around M. Night Shyamalan. It's just great. Next up, we have The Shape of Water, and realistically, is this a horror movie? Maybe, maybe not. It is much more of a dark fantasy, all things considered, but I still think it's one that should be shouted out. It won the Oscar for Best Picture during its time, so definitely one that should be discussed. Definitely great. I mean, again, it's based on the creature from the Black Lagoon in a lot of senses, so it'd be kind of wild not to even consider this as a horror movie. I do think in some respects it is. Again, it's more of a dark fantasy than anything else, but still should be one that should be discussed. Next up, we have A Quiet Place, and I feel like this is one that maybe not many people consider it the best anymore because the sequels haven't been, they don't compare to the sequels. It's basically what I'm talking about. I think the sequels kind of lacking when compared to the original one. So in a lot of senses, this original one, A Quiet Place, has kind of been brought down over time because of the sequel's legacy. But overall, I still think it's a great movie. Just the sound design, especially because, you know, they have to be silent. It's just incredible in this movie. It's just great. And definitely one that should be rewatched time and time again. Definitely go check it out if you haven't already. Next up, we have Doctor Sleep. I mean, you have a sequel to The Shining that's trying to honor both Stephen Kubrick and Stephen King. Stanley Kubrick and Stephen King, my bad. You're trying to honor both of those incredible artists. And, you know, just how do you do that? You do that with Doctor Sleep, where you're able to honor both artists in the appropriate way. It's such an incredible movie. This one was a struggle not putting it on the list. I'm not gonna lie. Next up, we have Crawl from 2019. And yeah, this is the alligator movie. Very tension-filled, and it's based here in Florida as well. I think it's based just a little bit north of me, I want to say. And it's a great movie, very tension-filled. It's one that definitely do rewatch. If you haven't already, go check it out right now. And it's also a very fun movie. Next up, we have Possessor, and this is such a trippy movie. This is actually Cronenberg's son. With Cronenberg, whether it be the father or the son, you know you're gonna get some very, very trippy visuals, some very trippy stuff do come out of it, and such a great movie. I've only seen it the one time, but I do think it's one that has stuck in my brain with some of the imagery and just what goes on in that movie. Definitely do check it out. And last but not least, we have Terrifier 2 here, mostly because the original Terrifier doesn't have that much of a plot, and it really just truly is a gore fest type of movie, as opposed to the second one, where we finally do get a plot to the movie. And we do get some gory deaths, because of course it's Terrifier, and that clown is just freaking crazy. Who wants to mess with Terrifier? Art the Clown. No, not me. I'm good. Goodbye. So yeah, that's basically it for the list. What are your thoughts on this whole list? Comment all that down below. Let me know on your thoughts on this whole list. And that's basically it for now. This is Daniel Mart signing off.